Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Darati Swaparantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Sagana Raghunathan Vidam Tam Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमः विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवारि पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासारि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Haribol. So today we continue with chapter 13, text number 23. Upadrashtanumantacha Bharta Bhukta Maheshwara Paramatmeti cha Yukto Dehesmin Purusha Paraha. Upadrashta, overseer, Anumanta, permitter. Cha, also. Bharta, master. Bhukta, supreme enjoyer. Maheshvaraha, the supreme lord. Paramatma, super soul. Iti, also. Cha, and Apiyukta is said. Dehe, in this body. Asmin, this Purushaha, enjoyer. Para, transcendental. Translation. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. Purport. It is stated here that the super soul is always with the individual soul, is the representation of the Supreme Lord. He is not an ordinary living entity. Because the monist philosophers take the knower of the body to be one, they think that there is no difference between the super soul and the individual soul. To clarify this, the Lord says that he is the representation of Paramatma in every body. He is different from the individual soul. He is Paraha, transcendental. The individual soul enjoys the activities of a particular field, but the supersoul is present not as finite enjoyer nor as one taking part in bodily activities, but as the witness, overseer, permitter, and supreme enjoyer. His name is Paramatma, not Atma, and he is transcendental. It is distinctly clear that the Atma and Paramatma are different. The super soul and Paramatma has legs and hands everywhere, but the individual soul does not. And because he is the Supreme Lord, he is present within to sanction the individual soul's desiring material enjoyment. Without the sanction of the Supreme Soul, the individual soul cannot do anything. The individual is Bhakta, or the sustained, and he is Bhukta, or the maintainer. There are innumerable living entities, and he is staying in them as a friend. The fact is that individual living entities are eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and both of them are intimately related as friends. But the living entity has the tendency to reject the sanction of the Supreme Lord and act independently in an attempt to dominate the Supreme Nature. And because he has this tendency, he is called the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. The living entity can be situated either in the material energy or the spiritual energy. As long as he is conditioned by the material energy, the Supreme Lord as his friend, the super soul stays with him just to get him to return to the spiritual energy. The Lord is always eager to take him back to the spiritual energy, but due to his minute independence, the individual entity is continually rejecting the association of spiritual light. This misuse of independence is the cause of his material strife in the conditioned nature. The Lord, therefore, is always giving instruction from within and from without. From without he gives instructions, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, and from within he tries to convince him that his activities in the material field are not conducive to real happiness. Just give it up and turn your faith toward me, then you will be happy, he says. Thus, the intelligent person who places his faith in the Paramatma or the Supreme Personality of Godhead begins to advance toward the blissful eternal life of knowledge. Haribol. Okay, who wants to read the text number 24? Baja Hari Prabhu, can Haribol.
Hare Krishna Guru. Text 24. य एवेति पुरुषं प्रकृति सगुणेशः सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि न स भूयो अभिजायते. यह anyone evam thus veti understand purusham the living entities purusham the living entities prakritim purusham the living entities. Prabhu, how this purusham living entity is here?
I don't know Sanskrit, Prabhu, but yeah, maybe. Let's see.
Okay, I will note down it. Purusham the living entities.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, I'm reading from book. So you
Yes, Prabhu. Is it different?
know
Yes, Prabhu.
Purusham.
Yeah, it's Purush.
Hmm. But the Purusham, how can be the living entity? Purusham is the Bhagwan. Okay, I will ask you the Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Prakritim, material nature. Cha and Gunai, mode of the material nature. Saha, with Sarvata, by the means. Vartamana, situated. Api, in spite of. Na, never. Sa, he. Bhuya, again. Abhijayate, take his birth. Translation. One who understands his philosophy, one who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the mode of the nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. Purport. Clear understanding of the material nature, the super soul, the individual soul, and their interrelation make one eligible to become liberated and turn to the spiritual atmosphere without being forced to return to this material nature. This is the result of knowledge. The purpose of knowledge is to understand distinctly that the living entity has by chance fallen into this material existence. By his personal endeavor in association with authorities, saintly person, and a spiritual master, he has to understand his position and then revert to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness by understanding Bhagavad Gita as it is explained by the personality of Godhead. It is certain it then it is certain that he will never come again into this material existence. He will be transferred into the spiritual world for a blissful eternal life of knowledge. Wow. Text 25. ध्यानेन आत्मनि पश्यन्ति केचिद आत्मानम् आत्मनः अन्ये सांख्येन योगेन कर्म योगेन चापरे ध्यानेन by meditation atmani self pashyanti see kesit one atmanam super soul atmana by the mind anye others sankhyena by the philosophical discussion yogena by the yoga system karma yogena by the activities without fruitive desire cha also apare others translation that super soul is perceived by some through meditation by some through the cultivation of knowledge and by others through working without fruitive desire. Purport. The Lord informs Arjuna that the conditioned soul can be divided into two classes as far as man's search for the self-realization is concerned. Those who are atheists, agnostics, and skeptics are beyond the sense of the spiritual understanding. What is this agnostic?
What, Prabhu?
Agnostic means
No, it's like, how to explain?
this is same like atheist,
Yeah,
ignorant.
similar. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, similar like that. They say that the truth cannot be known.
Oh. Guru. But there are others who are faithful in their understanding of spiritual life, and they are called workers who have renounced fruitive result. Those who always try to establish the doctrine of monism are also counted among the atheists and agnostics. In other words, only the devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are really capable of spiritual understanding because they understand that beyond this material nature there is the spiritual world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is expanded as the Paramatma, the Super Soul in everyone, all pervading Godhead. Of course, of course, there are those who try to understand the Supreme Absolute Truth by the cultivation of the knowledge, and they can be counted in the second class. The atheist philosopher analyze this material world into 24 elements, and they place the individual soul as the 25th item. When they are able to understand the nature of the individual soul to be transcendental to the material element, they are able to understand also that above the individual soul there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the 26th element. Thus, gradually, they also come to the standard of the devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Those who work without fruitive result are also perfect in their attitude. They are given a chance to advance to the platform of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Here is stated that there are some people who are pure in consciousness and who try to find out the super soul by meditation. And when they discover the super soul within themselves, they become transcendently situated. Similarly, there are others who also try to understand the super soul, supreme soul, by cultivation of knowledge. And there are others who cultivate the Hatha Yoga system and who try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by childish activities. Hari.
Revolve. Yeah, this was funny.
Mhm.
Satisfied by the supreme by childish activities.
Hmm. Now this all going on the India only, bro.
Yes, bro. अन्यत् अन्यद्वेवम् अजानन्ता श्रुत्वा नेभ्य उपासते तेऽपि च तरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणः. Ni others too, but evam this ajananta without spiritual knowledge, rutva by hearing, anyebhya from others, upasate begin to worship, they api also cha and aditaranti transcend eva certain in mrityum the path of death, shruti parayana inclined to the process of hearing. Translation. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Purport. This verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society there is practically no education in spiritual matters. Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there is no knowledge of philosophy. As for the common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress. Especially according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, it is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age no one needs to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning. One should learn to become the servant of those who are in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about the self-realization, and follow in his footsteps, he will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. In this verse particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithfully hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back to home. Yavat samjayate kinchit sattvam stavara jangamam kshedragna samyoga tadvitti paratarshaba Yavat whatever samjate takes place, kinchit anything, sattvam existence, stavara not moving, jangamam moving, kshetra the body, kshetragna knower of the body, samyogat union between, tadviddi you must know it. Bharatarshaba, O chief of the Bharatas. Translation. O chief of the Bharatas, whatever you see in existence, both moving and unmoving, is only the combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. Purport. Both material nature and the living entity which were existing before the creation of the cosmos are explained in this verse. Whatever is created is but a combination of the living entity and material nature. There are many manifestations like trees and mountains and hills which are not moving, and there are many existences which are moving, and all of them are but combinations of material nature and superior nature. The living entity, without the touch of the superior nature, but combinations of material nature and superior nature, the living entity. Without the touch of the superior nature, the living entity, nothing can grow. Therefore, the relationship between matter and nature is eternally going on, and this combination is effected by the Supreme Lord. Therefore, he is the controller of both the superior and inferior natures. The material nature is created by him, and the superior nature is placed in this material nature, and thus all these activities and manifestations take place. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu, you can read next one.
Who is that? Sujaya Prabhu also there. If you are able, Prabhu, you can read.
Yes, Prabhu.
Sujaya Prabhu, are you there? Okay, I'm reading first. Tamam sarvesu bhutesu tishtant parameswaram vina vinashyat vinashyastam yaha pasyati sa pasyati samam, equally, sarveshu, in all, bhutesu, living entities, tishtham, residing, Parameswaram, the super soul, Vinashtu, in the destructible, Avinasyam, Vishetam, not destroyed. Yeah, anyone. Pashyati, see, sa, he, Pashyati, actually sees. Translation. One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul or the nor the super soul is ever destroyed actually sees. Anyone who can see, anyone who can see three things: the body, the property of the body, or individual soul, and the field of the individual soul combined together by the good association is actually in knowledge. Those who are not associated with the soul's friends are ignorant. They simply see the body, and when the body is destroyed, they think that everything is finished. But actually, it is not so. After the destruction of the body, both the soul and the super soul exist, and they go on eternally in many various moving and unmoving forms. They go on eternally in many various and unmoving forms. The Sanskrit word for the Parameswaram is sometimes translated as the individual soul, because the soul is the master of the body, and the and and after the destruction of the body, he transferred to the another form. In that way, he is master. But there are others who interpret this Parameswaram to be the super soul. In either case, both the super soul and the individual soul continue. They are not destroyed. One who can see in this way can actually see what is happening. Text 29. संपश्यन् हि सर्वत्र समवस्थितम् ईश्वरम् न हिनस्ति आत्मा आत्मात्मनां ततो यति परमं गतिम् समम equally pasyan seeing he certainly sarvatra everywhere samvastitam situated equally situated iswaram super soul na does not hinasti degrade atmana by the mind atmanam the soul tata yati the rich then reaches paramam the transcendental gatim destination. Translation. One who sees the super soul in every living being and equal everywhere does not degrade himself by his mind, thus he approaches the transcendental destination. Purpose. The living entity, by accepting this material existence as so much suffering, can become situated in his spiritual existence. If one understands that the supreme is situated in his Paramatma manifestation everywhere, that is, if one can see the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every living things, he does not degrade himself, and he therefore gradually advances in the spiritual world. The mind is generally addicted to the self-centered process, but when the mind turns to the super soul, one becomes advanced in the spiritual understanding.
Haribol. Okay, one more, Prabhu.
Yeah, bro. Text 30. प्रकृत्येव च कर्माणि क्रियमाणानि सर्वश य पश्यति तथात्मानं कर्ता कर्तारं स पश्यति. Prakritya, material nature, eva certainly, cha also, karmani activities, kiryamanani engaged in the performing, sarvasa in all respect, ya who, anyone who, pasyati sees, tatha also, atmanam himself, akartaram non-doer, sa he pasyati sees perfectly. Translation. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. Wow. Perfect. This body is made by the material nature under the direction of the supreme soul, super soul. And whatever activities are going on in the respect to one's body are not his doing. Whatever one is supposed to do, either for the happiness or distress, one is forced to do because of the bodily constitution. The self, however, is outside all these bodily activities. This body is given according to one's past desire. To fulfill this desire, one is given the body, with which he act accordingly. Practically speaking, the body is a machine designed by the Supreme Lord to fulfill desire. Because of the desire, one is put into difficult circumstances to suffer or to enjoy. This transcendental vision of living entity, when developed, make one separate from bodily activities. One who has such a vision is an actual seer. Wow, very nice, bro.
Yes, Prabhu.
This purport and actually this sloka contain all the philosophy.
Yes, Prabhu.
In the short course, it contain all the philosophy.
Hmm. Who wants to read the next one? Hare Krishna, Hare Prabhu, Dandaparam, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. I can read
Yes,
the
Prabhu.
next one. Hare Bol. Text 31. Yada bhuta prithagbhavam ekastam anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadyate tada. Yada when bhuta living entities prithak bhavam separated entities ekastam situated in one anupashyati tries to see through our authority tata eva thereafter ja also istaram expanded brahma the absolute sampadyate attains tada at that time. Translation. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities which are due to different material bodies, he attains to the Brahman conception. Thus he sees that things are expanded. Thus he sees that things are expanded everywhere. Ceases to see different which are due to different. When one can see that the various bodies of living entities arise to the different desires of the individual soul, and do not actually belong to the soul itself, one actually sees. Oh, niin joo, siis kehdo. Joo. In the material conception of life, we find someone a demigod, someone a human being, a dog, a cat, etc. This is material vision, not actual vision. This material differentiation is due to a material conception of life. After the destruction of the material body, the spirit soul is one. The spirit soul, due to contact with material nature, gets different types of bodies. When one can see this, he attains spiritual vision, thus being freed from different differentiations like man, animal, big, low, etc. One becomes purified in his consciousness and able to develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity. How he then sees things will be explained in the next verse. अनादित्वा निर्गुणत्वात् परमात्मायम् अव्ययः शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते. Okay, this is anaditvat, due to eternity, nirgunatvat, due to transcendental, param, beyond material nature, atma, spirit, ayam, this, avyayaha, inexhaustible, sharira, staha, api, though dwelling in the body, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Nakaroti never does anything. Nalipyate, nor is he entangled. Translation: those with the vision of eternity can see that the soul is transcendental, eternal and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body of Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. So, neither does anything. Okay. For a living entity appears to be born because of the birth of the material body, but actually the living entity is eternal. He is not born, and in spite of his being situated in a material body, he is transcendental and eternal. Thus he cannot be destroyed. By nature he is full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. Therefore the activities performed due to his contact with material bodies do not entangle him. Do I continue or does someone else want to continue? Haribol.
Hey Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. Vivek, Prabhu, do you want to read the next two or three?
Thank you.
For 5 minutes, I will give.
Okay.
You can continue.
यथा सर्वगतं सूक्ष्मदक्षासं नोपलिप्यते सर्वत्र वस्थितो देहे तथात्मानोपलिप्यते yatha as sarvagatam, all pervading, saukshmyads due to being subtle, akasham, the sky, na never, upalipyate mixes, sarvatra everywhere, avashtitaha situated, dehe in the body, tata such atma the self, na never, upalipyate mixes. Translation: the sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. See, the sky does not mix with the air that is in the sky. The sky is carrying the air, but it does not mix. And the soul, it does not mix with the body, even though it's inside the body. The soul is just like when you sit inside your car, you don't mix with your car. You don't become, if you sit inside a Japanese car, you go to Toyota and you sit inside there, you don't become a Japanese man. You're the same person, but the body, the car is just Japanese. Purport: the air enters into water, mud, stool, and whatever else is there. Still, it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. Therefore, it is impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can ascertain this. 34. Yatha prakashyata ekah krishnam lokamimam ravi kshetram kshetri tata krishnam prakashyati bharata. Yata as prakashati illuminates ekaha one, Krishnam the whole, lokam universe, imam this ravihi the sun, kshetram this body, kshetri the soul, tataha similarly, Krishnam all, prakashati illuminates Bharata, son of Bharata. Translation. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Purport. There are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in Bhagavad Gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit soul, although situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Thus, consciousness is the proof of the presence of the soul, as sunshine or light is the proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is not a production of the combinations of matter. It is the symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the supreme consciousness, is not supreme because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. But the super soul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between supreme consciousness and individual consciousness. क्षेत्रक्षेत्राग्नयोरेवम् अन्तरं ज्ञानचक्षुषा भूता प्रकृतिमोक्षं च ये विदुर्यन्ति ते परम्. Kshetra body, kshetra jnano of the proprietor of the body, evam that antaram difference, jnana chakshusha by vision of knowledge, bhuta living entity, prakriti material nature, moksham liberation, cha also, ye one who with who knows, yanti approaches, they, param supreme. Translation. One who knowingly sees this difference between the body and the owner of the body and can understand the process of liberation from this bondage also attains to the supreme goal. Purport. The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and the super soul. A faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God and thus gradually become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, he can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master teaches his students to get free from the material conception of life by various instructions. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic considerations. One can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed with its 24 elements. That is the gross manifestation, and the subtle manifestation is the mind and physiological effects, and the symptoms of life are the interactions of these features. But over and above this, there is the soul, and there is also the super soul. The soul and the super soul are two. This material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and the 24 material elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and the material elements, and also can see the situation of the Supreme Soul, becomes eligible to transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purpose to the 13th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of nature, the enjoyer and consciousness. Very good. Okay, who wants to start the next chapter? Vivek Prabhu, are you free now?
Yes, so I can.
Oh, yes, Prabhu. Haribo.
Can I read now?
Yes, Prabhu.
Chapter 13 now. Chapter
14.
13.
Yes, 14.
Okay. The three modes of material nature. Text 1. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Param Bhuya Pravakshyami Jnanam Utmamaham Yajñatva Munyaha Sarve Param Siddhim Togata. Next one. Meaning Sri Bhagavan Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Param, transcendental Bhuya, again, Pravakshami, I shall speak Jnanam of all knowledge, Jnanam of all knowledge, Jnanam knowledge, Uttamam, the Supreme, Yat, which Jnatva, knowing, Munyaha, the sages survey all param, transcendental siddhim, perfection, itha, from this world, ghatha, attain. Translation: the blessed Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, again I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained to supreme perfection. Purport: from the 7th chapter to the end of the 12th chapter, Sri Krishna is detailed reveals the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead. Now, the Lord Himself is further enlightening Arjuna. If one surrenders this chapter through the process of philosophical speculation, he will come to an understanding of devotional service. In the 13th chapter, it was clearly explained that by humbly developing knowledge, one may possibly be freed from material entanglement. It has also been explained that it is due to association with the modes of nature that the living entity is entangled in this material world. Now, in this chapter, the Supreme Personality explains what those modes of nature are, how they act, how they bind, and how they give liberation. The knowledge explained in this chapter is proclaimed by the Supreme Lord to be superior to the knowledge given so far in other chapters. By understanding this knowledge, various great sages attain perfection and transfer to the spiritual world. The Lord now explains same knowledge in a better way. This knowledge is far superior to all other process of knowledge. Those for explained and knowing this many attain perfection. Those it is expected that one who understands this 14th chapter will attain perfection. Text 2. Idam jnanam upasritya mama sadharamya agatha sarge no pajanti pralyena vyaptanti cha. Okay, idam, this jnanam, knowledge, upashriyate, yeah, taking shelter of mama, my sadhyamya, one nature, agatha, attain, sarge, api, even in the creation, never upajayanti, comes in pravalya, in the annihilation, nor but with we are done the disturbed also. Translation: by becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature which is like my own nature. This shows established one is not born at the time of creation, not distributed at the time of distribution. Purport of after acquiring perfect knowledge, perfect transcendental knowledge, one acquires qualitative equality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, becoming free from the reciprocation of birth and death. One does not, however, lose his identify as an individual soul. It is understood from Vedic literature that the liberated souls who have reached the transcendental planets of the spiritual sky always look to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, being engaged in his transcendental loving service. So even after liberation, the devotees do not lose their individual identities. Generally, in the material world, whatever knowledge we get in contaminated by the three modes of material nature, but knowledge which is not contaminated by three modes of nature is called transcendental knowledge. As soon as one is situated in that transcendental knowledge, he is on the same platform as that of the Supreme Person. Those who have no knowledge of the no knowledge of the spiritual sky hold that after being freed from the material activities of the material form, this spiritual identity becomes formless without any virginatedness. However, just as there is material virginatedness in this world, so in the spiritual world there is also variegatedness. Thus, in ignorance of these things and think that spiritual existence is opposite to material variety, but actually in the spiritual sky one attains spiritual form. There are spiritual activities and the spiritual situation is called devotional service. That atmosphere is said to be uncontaminated, and there one is equal in equality quality with the Supreme Lord. To obtain such knowledge, one must develop all the spiritual qualities, qualities, qualities. One who those develops the spiritual qualities is not affected neither by the creation or the destruction of the material world. May I continue?
Reward. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. 63. Mama Yonir Mahad Brahma Tasmin Garbham Dadhamyamham Svambhava Sarvabhutanam Tato Bhavati Bharata Mama my Yoni source of birth Matha the total material existence Brahma supreme Tasmin in that Garbham pregnancy Dadham me create Aham I from Sambhava possibility Sarva Bhutanam of all living entities. Tatha thereafter Bhavanti becomes Bharata, O son of Bharata. Translation: the total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnated, making possible the birth of all living beings, O son of Bharata. Purport: this is an explanation of the world. Everything that takes place is due to the combination of Kshetra and Kshetrajna, the body and the spirit soul. This combination of material nature and the living entity is made possible by the Supreme God Himself, the Matha Tattva. Mat Tattva is the total cause of the total cosmic manifestation, and because in the total substance of the material cause there are three modes of nature. It is sometimes called Brahman, the Supreme Personality impregnates the total substance, and those innumerable universe become possible. This total material substance, the Mahatattva, is described as Brahman in the Vedic literature. Tasmad etad Brahmanama Rupam Anam cha Jayate. Into that Brahman, the seeds of the living entities, are impregnated by the Supreme Person. The 24 elements, beginning from earth, water, fire, and air, are all material energy called Brahma, or the great Brahman, the material nature. As is explained in the 7th chapter, behind this there is another superior nature, the living entity in the material nature. The superior nature is mixed the by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thereafter all living entities are born of this material nature. The scorpion lays its eggs in pails of rice, and sometimes it is said that the scorpion is born out of rice, but the rice is not the cause of the scorpion. Actually, the eggs were laid by the mother. Similarly, material nature is not the cause of the birth of the living entities. The seed is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they only seem to promote as products of material nature. Thus, every living entity, according to his past activities, has a different body created by this material nature, and the entity can enjoy or suffer according to his past deeds. The Lord is the cause of all manifestation of living entities in this material world.
Haribol. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Can I continue?
Let's see if anyone also wants to read.
Okay, sir.
Is this also heard?
Who wants to continue?
Hare Krishna Yaku Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. You can read the next verse if you want.
Okay, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Can you
Wait,
can you
yes, Prabhu. That's also
roll the screen
Haribol.
of the book right here? Okay. So this is text 4. Okay. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Sarvayonishu kanteha murtaha sambhavantiyam tasam brahma mahadionir ampecha pradapitam. Sarvayonishu. In all species of life, kanteha, son of Kunti, murtaha, forms, sambhavanti, as they appear, which tasam, all of them, Brahma, supreme, Mahatyoni, the source of birth in the material substance, and myself, Bija Prada, seed-giving, Gita, Father, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, and Srila Prabhupada. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, that I am the seed-giving Father. In this verse, it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original Father of all living entities. Living entities are combinations of the material nature, spiritual nature. Such living entities are seen not only on this planet, but in every planet, even in the highest where Brahma is. Everywhere there are living entities. Within the earth, there are living entities, even within water and within fire. All these appearances are due to the mother material nature, Krishna's seed-giving process. Purport is that the living entities being impregnated in the material world come out and form at the time of creation, according to their past deeds. Prabhu, can I ask a question?
Yes, Prabhu.
This is dealing only with the materially conditioned souls, this verse, or how is it that this particular verse is only referring to conditioned living entities, or here it said that all the living entities, but it's only the conditioned, right?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, this is about the material nature. That
Yes.
this is about the species of life in the material nature. That how they take the species. The same species are, of course, there in the spiritual world, mostly. There is not the demoniac species, I think. these ghosts are. I don't think in spiritual world there is ghosts and
Shouldn't be. No. No ghostly bodies or such.
yeah.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you, bro.
You can read also the next one. It's just
All
short.
right. Text 5. I think we're going to watch. Sattvam rajas tamaiti punaha prakriti sambhavam tadnanti mahabhav tehetena avyayam. Sattvam, mode of goodness. Raja, mode of passion. Tama, mode of ignorance. Iti, thus. Punaha, qualities. Prakriti, material nature. Sambhava, produced of. Tadnanti, was condition. Mahabhav, mighty armed one. Tehe, in his body. Tehinam, living entity. Vyayam, eternal. Material nature consists of the three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The living entity comes in contact with nature, it becomes conditioned by the modes. The living entity, because he is transcendental, has nothing to do with this material nature. Yeah, because he has become conditioned by the material world, he is acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature. Those living entities have different kinds of bodies, in terms of the different aspects of nature, are induced to act according to that nature. This is the cause of the varieties of happiness and distress.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
So, Prabhupada.
Yeah, so in the spiritual world, there is the original form. Everyone has the two-handed original form. But according to their taste, their rasa, they can take different forms. Like if someone is in Avan Revelation, he can take as like a form of a deer or something like this. And according to their rasa, the form is, someone is bumblebee, someone is a parrot, Sukadeva Goswami is a parrot. So there's also different species there. But in any ways, Krishna is the origin of these all forms and expansions.
What do you mean, Prabhu, that do you mean there is like a living entity can have many kinds of spiritual forms, or I've never heard this?
Yes, Prabhu, or I mean that the original form is the two-handed form like Krishna. But according to his, what kind of, relation he has with Krishna, according to the taste, the rasa, he can take different forms. If someone is in Vatsalya rasa, he takes certain kind of form. If someone is in the parental rasa, he takes a form of a parent. And what is the fifth? I forgot the Sanskrit name. Is it the Avan reverence? What rasa it is? Does anyone remember?
No, isn't that Dasya Ras?
Yeah, it's Dasaras. So in Dasaras, they can take, for example, an animal form. Or even because in spiritual world, even the items, they are persons. Someone in Dasaras can take, for example, for example, the Krishna's flute is in servitorship, and it's an item.
Yes, bro. But does Krishna's flute also have like a two-handed original form then?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that's interesting.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, text number 6. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvad prakashakam anamayam sukha sangena patnati jnana sangena chanagaha. Tatra, thereafter, sattva, mode of goodness, nirmalatvad, being purest in the material world, Prakashakam, illuminating, anamayam, without any sinful reaction, sukha, happiness, sangena, association, batnati, conditions, jnana, knowledge, sangena, association, cha, also, angaha, anaga, O sinless one. Translation. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode develop knowledge, but they become conditioned by the concept of happiness. Purport. The living entities conditioned by material nature are of various types. One is happy, another is very active, and another is helpless. All these type of physiological manifestations are causes of the entity's conditioned status in nature. How they are differently conditioned is explained in this section of Bhagavad Gita. The mode of goodness is first considered. The effect of developing the mode of goodness in the material world is that one becomes wiser than those otherwise conditioned. A man in the mode of goodness is not so much affected by material miseries, and he has a sense of advancement in material knowledge. The representative type is the Brahmana, who is supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness. This sense of happiness is due to understanding that in the mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reactions. Actually, in the Vedic literature, it is said that the mode of goodness means greater knowledge and a greater sense of happiness. The difficulty here is that when a living entity is situated in the mode of goodness, he becomes conditioned to feel that he is advanced in knowledge and is better than others. In this way, he becomes conditioned. The best example are the scientist and philosopher, each very proud of his knowledge, and because they generally improve their living conditions, they feel a sort of material happiness. The sense of advanced happiness in conditioned life makes them bound by the mode of goodness of material nature. As such, they are attracted toward working in the mode of goodness. And as long as they have attraction for more working in that way, they have to take some type of body in the modes of nature. Thus, there is no likelihood of liberation or of being transferred to the spiritual world. Repeatedly, one may become a philosopher, a scientist, or a poet, and repeatedly become entangled in the same disadvantages of birth and death. But due to the illusions of the material energy, one thinks that sort of life is pleasant. Text number 7. Rajoragatmakam viddhi trishna sanga samudbhavam tam nibadnati kaunteya karma sangena dehinam. Rajaha, mode of passion, raga atmakam, born of desire of lust, viddhi, no, trishna, hankering, sangha, association, samudbhavam, produced of that, nibad, nibadan, nibadnati, is bound, kaunteya, O son of Kunti, karma sangena, association with fruitive activity, dehinam, of the embodied. Translation. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this one is bound to material fruitive activities. Purport. The mode of passion is characterized by the attraction between man and woman. Woman has attraction for man and man has attraction for woman. This is called the mode of passion. And when the mode of passion is increased, one develops the hankering for material enjoyment. He wants to enjoy sense gratification. For sense gratification, a man in the mode of passion wants some honor in society or in the nation, and he wants to have a happy family with nice children, wife, and house. These are the products of the mode of passion. As long as one is hankering after these things, he has to work very hard. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that he becomes associated with the fruits of his activities and thus becomes bound by such activities. In order to please his wife, children, and society, and to keep up his prestige, one has to work. Therefore, the whole material world is more or less in the mode of passion. Modern civilization is considered to be advanced in the standards of the mode of passion. Formerly, the advanced condition was considered to be in the mode of goodness. If there is no liberation for those in the mode of goodness, what of those who are entangled in the mode of passion? Okay, one more. Text number 8. Tamastvanjana jam viddhi mohanam sarvadehinam pramadalasya nitrabish tannibadnati bharata. Tamaha, mode of ignorance. 2, but agyanajam, products of ignorance. Vidhi, knowing. Mohanam, delusion. Sarvadehinam, of all embodied beings. Pramada, madness. Alasya, indolence. Nidra, be sleep. Tat, that. Nibadnati, binds. Bharata, son of Bharata. Translation. O son of Bharata, the mode of ignorance causes the delusion of all living entities. The result of this mode is madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. Yeah, is this indolence like laziness? Purport. In this verse, the specific application of the word to is very significant. This means that the mode of ignorance is a very peculiar qualification of the embodied soul. This mode of ignorance is just the opposite of the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, by development of knowledge, one can understand what is what. But the mode of ignorance is just the opposite. Everyone under the spell of the mode of ignorance becomes mad, and a madman cannot understand what is what. Instead of making advancement, one becomes degraded. The definition of the mode of ignorance is stated in the Vedic literature. Under the spell of ignorance, one cannot understand the thing as it is. For example, everyone can see that his grandfather has died, and therefore he will also die. Man is mortal. The children that he conceives will also die. So that death is sure. Still, people are madly accumulating money and working very hard all day and nights, not caring for the eternal spirit. This is madness. In their madness, they are very reluctant to make advancement in spiritual understanding. Such people are very lazy. When they are invited to associate for spiritual understanding, they are not much interested. They are not even active like the man who is controlled by the mode of passion. Thus, another symptom of one embedded by the mode of ignorance is that he sleeps more than is required. 6 hours of sleep is sufficient, but a man in the mode of ignorance sleeps at least 10 or 12 hours a day. Such a man appears to be always dejected and is addicted to intoxicants and sleeping. These are the symptoms of a person conditioned by the mode of ignorance. Okay, one more. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati raja karmani bharata jnanam avrityatu tama pramade sanjayat uta. Sattvam, mode of goodness, sukhe in happiness, sanjati develops, rajaha, mode of passion, karmani, fruits of activities, bharata, son of Bharata, jnanam, knowledge, avritya, covering, tu, but tamaha, the mode of ignorance, pramade, in madness, sanjayati develops, uta, it is said. Translation. The mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions him to the fruits of action, and ignorance to madness. Purport. A person in the mode of goodness is satisfied by his work or intellectual pursuit, just as a philosopher, scientist, or educator may be engaged in a particular field of knowledge and may be satisfied in that way. A man in the modes of passion and goodness may be engaged in fruitive activity. He owns as much as he can and spends so for good causes. Sometimes he tries to open hospitals, give to charity institutions, etc. These are the signs of one in the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance covers knowledge. In the mode of ignorance, whatever one does is neither good for him nor for anyone. Okay, one more. This is important verse. Rajastamas chabibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata rajasattvam tamas chaiva tamas sattvam rajastata. Rajaha, mode of passion, tamaha, mode of ignorance, sha also, abhibhuya, also surpassing, sattvam, mode of goodness, bhavati, becomes prominent, bharata, son of Bharata, rajaha, mode of passion, sattvam, mode of goodness, tamaha, mode of ignorance, sha also, eva, like that. Tamaha, mode of ignorance, sattvam, mode of goodness, rajaha, mode of passion, tata, as in this. Translation. Sometimes the mode of passion becomes prominent, defeating the mode of goodness, O son of Bharata, and sometimes the mode of goodness defeats passion, and at other times the mode of ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy. Yeah, this is going always in the material world. Even if someone is in goodness, he cannot stay in goodness forever, because sometimes the passion will defeat. And only in spiritual world there is the Suddha Sattva. That means pure goodness. It's not tinged with little bit even of passion or ignorance. Here it's always changing and it's always mixed.
Yes, bro.
When the mode of passion is prominent, the modes of goodness and ignorance are defeated. When the mode of goodness is prominent, passion and ignorance are defeated. And when the mode of ignorance is prominent, passion and goodness are defeated. This competition is always going on. Therefore, one who is actually intent on advancing in Krishna consciousness has to transcend these three modes. The prominence of some certain mode of nature is manifested in one's dealings, in his activities, in eating, etc. All this will be explained in later chapters. But if one wants, he can develop by practice the mode of goodness and thus defeat the modes of ignorance and passion. One can similarly develop the mode of passion and defeat goodness and ignorance, or one can develop the mode of ignorance and defeat goodness and passion. Although there are these three modes of material nature, if one is determined, he can be blessed by the mode of goodness, and by transcending the mode of goodness, he can be situated in pure goodness, which is called Vasudeva state, a state in which one can understand the signs of God. By the manifestation of particular activities, it can be understood in what mode of nature one is situated. Haribol. Okay, now we need to go to 6 Astakam prayers. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamaha davagni nirvapanam shreyah kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadu jivanam anandam buddhivardhanam pradipadam purnamritasvadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam.
नामनामकारि बहुजनि च सर्वशक्ति तत्रार्पितानि यमित स्मरणेन काला तस्यै तव कृपा भगवान् ममापि दुर्दैवम् इत्थमिह जानिनानुरक्तः
Haribol.
Anadapi Sunikena Raurapi Saishtana Namani Namanadena Kirtanaya Sadari.
नदनं नदनं सुन्दरं कवितं वा जगदीशकामे मम जन्मनि जन्मनिष्करी भगवद्भक्तिरहितपितरी.
नन्दतनुचकिङ्करं पतितं अम्बिष्मकोऽम्बुजौ कृपया तव परमपङ्कजस्थितरु सत्संविचिन्तयाम्.
Nanam galadashrudaraya vadanam gadgadar gira pulakarnishitam vapu kada tavanam grihane bhavishyati.
विवाहितं निमेषेन चक्षुषा प्रवशितं विन्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दं विरहेण मे.
Aslisya Vapadaratam Vinastumam Adasanan Marmatam Karotuva Yadadata Vidadatu Lampato Matprananatastu Saiva Napra.
Haribol, Haribol. Translation. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings and those you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental abilities. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of prestige, be ready to offer all respect to others. Such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion, service, birth after birth.
O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
O Govinda, fearing your separations, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all awakened in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Haribol, Sri Siksastakam Ki Jai.
Jai.
Okay, now we read the 10 offenses to the holy name. First offense, to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord.
Second one, to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of the Lord Vishnu.
To disobey the orders of the spiritual master.
Number 4, to blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance to the Vedic version.
Fifth one, to consider the glories of the chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination.
6, to give some interpretations to the holy name of the Lord.
To commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name.
Number 8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda.
To instruct a faithless person about the glories of the name, holy name.
Number 10, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. पंचतत्व की जाय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य की जाय नित्यानंद की जाय शिला प्रभुपाद की जाय निताय गौर प्रेम हरि हरि बोल
Hare Bol.